Let's get into Absolute Batman. This is it. This is all we've been waiting for all summer long, all the videos we did, all the conversations. It all comes down to this. Scott Snyder, Nick Dragotta on the art, Frank Martin, Frank Martin on the colors, Clayton Cowles on the letters. Feels like a dream team. And there are a lot of questions going into this book. How different is it going to be? How closely are they going to stick to the script, as it were, of traditional Batman stories? Would it just feel like another, Black Label book, or is it going to really feel meaningfully different? I think all of those are debatable questions, but what is not debatable to me is that this was a slam dunk. I thought this was fantastic.
I was probably one of the people when this was first announced on paper that thought Snyder's already done Bruce Wayne. He's done Batman. It was good, but Capullo was kind of a big part of that too. So maybe I wasn't the most excited from the get. Then I hear Dragotta's on art with Frank Martin, and now that I finally have this technically in my hands, it's on an iPad. Um, man, this was good. I really enjoyed this. It was the first time in a while, even more so than last week, where I was excited to get my hands on a comic that I read it right away.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
This I have some thoughts. This just didn't knock it all the way out of the park for me. But I had fun reading it throughout. This was, I think, a really good attempt at differentiating and doing something more with a character that already has a pretty strong baseline. Um, but I think there are elements that feel uh, repetitive, and we can get into what that is.
I thought this was good. I think I lean closer to Marco. It felt like just an Elseworlds book to me, and a good one, but some of the bits felt a little contrived, and we can get into that. But um overall, I mean I did have a good time.
Yeah, 100%.
So let's set the table because there is a lot different. And the differences start right off the bat. Right off the first page, you know, we are seeing the inciting incident of how Bruce becomes Batman in this world. What spurs that on? And he's at a zoo. In fact, the issue is called The Zoo. The arc is called The Zoo. And weaving throughout the narrative in the present is this series of flashbacks that are showing you Bruce at the zoo with his family or his father during a school event that he essentially won for his class, a trip to the zoo. And on this trip to the zoo, some maniac with a gun fires off, and Bruce's dad dies in that attack. And theoretically, that coupled with, the general Gothamness of Gotham, it being a shitty place, inspires Bruce to become Batman. But this version of Bruce doesn't have the butler. He doesn't have the riches. He's a working class guy. He's a construction worker or whatever. His dad was a teacher. His mom, I think, is a social worker or something like that. So, they're very like grounded people. And I thought that was really interesting.
And I think that inciting incident at the zoo, it's never played in the same way that the Pearls and Crime Alley is played. Um, it's a lot more realistic, and even the and this is gonna sound dark as hell, but even the scene of having a group of kids having to run away from a gunman feels very modern, which is
Yeah.
the most depressing thing to have to say. Um, but that itself is like a reinvention, and it's not hokey the same way Bruce's parents getting killed in the main line can kind of get. It gets overly dramatic. It kind of plays with the themes of the movie theater and all that. Um, this felt like, oh no, this world, this Gotham shit's bad, and it's been bad even before Bruce was a kid. And they had to deal with this. I thought that was a real kind of a very I don't want to say subtle. It's a guy with a gun at a zoo, but it's only a tiny twist that really changes things for the better.
Well, I think it's to that grounding piece. It just feels like this is any other person, and I think that that's good for the message of what Batman is. It's it could happen to anybody. Like crime could happen to anybody. This violence could happen to anybody, and it is the fact that it was this individual that comes out of that mud to be able to do something with that anger, with that want for not even revenge, because I don't think that that's what this and that's out being. And it's supposed to be an angrier Batman, but it's angrier from a different place. And I think that that was a really cool spin on that.
It's an anger of helplessness. And
Yeah.
I didn't even put together the connection of a school shooter, because they're on a field trip, right? And this happens at a zoo for sure, but it's essentially a school shooting. Um, and the helplessness that you feel both as someone watching it, but then the helplessness that Bruce must feel. It's different because he's a little bit older than he would have been, in the mainline universe. Um, and he could, not that he could do something about it, but like being a modern take, like he knows what's happening.
Well, I think also it feels like he's more integrated into being somebody who is part of the wave of crime, like the story of um the family going to watch the movie. They were leaving their like castle, atop the hill to enter this environment, and he's just in it. He just lives that, so it feels much more like he is part of the city. And I think that's something that Snyder does well, is he makes the Gotham feel like another character. And I think Gotham gets a lot of shine here, especially the opening bits with Alfred when he first walks in. All that monologue is really cool to describe Gotham, and it's personified.
What's up, Atomic Hound? Good to see you. What's up, CW Gordon? Robotters 100, how's it hanging? Neon Knight, what's up, man? Steve Matthews, my man Steve. What's going on, Steve? Josh, what's up? Right back at you, Josh. Cole, how you doing? Izzy's Issues, good to see you hanging out here with us. Joseph Wolf, excuse me, says, finally caught a show in time. Well, welcome. Thank you for being here. Glad you could make it.
Finally,
Got a,
what's up, hot dog?
yeah, we got a whole lot of you rocking with us. Make sure you guys hit that like button. Be subscribed to the channel if you are not. Marco, speaking of that opening, well, it's the opening, but it also runs throughout the monologue by Alfred. You know, first of all, that reminded me tremendously of The Dark Knight Returns. And I know that that's one of Snyder's
Yeah.
favorite Batman comics. He talked about that a lot during his class that he teaches on Substack, and he broke down that first issue. And a big part of that first issue is Bruce's inner monologue when he's
Mm,
racing and you kind of get to see into his world. And he does a really smart thing here, Snyder does, where he plays on your expectations. You believe that that is Bruce
yeah.
because it's the narration is also sort of Scott speaking to you. It's Scott speaking about how long he's been away from Gotham. He says, hello again, Gotham. It's been a long time. Well, it's been about what, 5 years since Scott's time in Gotham ended. So it's Scott's return to Gotham as well. And in your mind you go, well, if this is Scott speaking, then of course that must be Bruce. He's in a motorcycle doing something a little dangerous. And then it's not Bruce, it's Alfred.
If I'm not mistaken, that's like an opening line of Dark Knight Returns too, something like it.
Don't
Yeah,
recall.
and
Yeah, I don't remember.
the
But
the constant news clips throughout too are it's very Dark Knight.
a- and then because you brought that up, that's probably my first critique, is that it felt like it aped a bit on it didn't feel as direct an homage as much as it did. It leaned on that familiarity to build its world, and that didn't make it feel distinct enough. I think to Cale's Elseworld point, that made it feel like it was more in line with that kind of a story than it is its own separate universe. Because even the party animals, that felt like the mutants, you know, slice and dice, the pure violence, the escalation,
Mm.
and the way that things build. And so, derivative is too strong a word, I think, but you can definitely see the influence. And from page one, that influence was felt by me, and it didn't necessarily take me out. But I thought it was very prominent.
I really like that though, because I like that it's giving you something familiar, but then it's twisting it in some way. Like, yes, it's definitely supposed to remind you of The Dark Knight Returns, but it's Alfred talking, right?
Mm.
We haven't been in the mind of this Bruce. We don't know how he thinks. There's all the inner monologues are from Alfred, right? Even when they tease us with it again when we get to Croc's gym and there's the guy boxing and training and you think that's Bruce and it's not Bruce. You turn the page and Bruce is this jacked monster. You know, he's running around looking like Brock Lesnar. And he never we don't know who he is at all. This is Scott not putting his chips out on the table. He's actually playing them closer to his chest than we've ever seen. Even if you compare this to The Dark Knight, that's a very vulnerable
Yeah.
book. We're getting right in his mind.
Yeah. Uh, Deus Ex Macchiato with the $5 spot says, "My conspiracy is that they made Batman swole to cast Alan Ritchson as Batman, absolute Batman later." Winky
You mean
face.
Aquaman and Hawkman? No way this guy gets a third man.
Manny, you says the Batman who lifts.
Hell yeah.
Yo, that was such a shocking scene because you're right. They swerve you again with that person who initially is on the bag, and then you just see this brolic ass dude like Bane level, and
It's Dragon
um
Ball Z level, Marco. Let's be real.
yeah,
It's like
yeah, muscles
Broly.
on, and it seemed a little it seemed almost a little excessive, and I didn't let that uh, muddy anything for me. And I think it made a lot more sense once we get farther down the line where Alfred goes through all the history of why how long he's been in the city, what he's been doing in the background. I think that helps to contextualize a lot of it. He's doing this for the city, for the people, for the child who, the next child who could be him.
My thing with that scene and what differentiates or doesn't quite differentiate enough is that he destroyed that bag. What we get the impression of again, and he has to drop $120 to fix it. And he's like, oh yeah, no big deal. I'll just hit you and I'm paid. Sorry? Oh, my man's not poor enough.
Yeah,
He is an
yeah.
engineer. They get paid pretty well, but he's not
Oh, okay,
1%.
but
Yeah.
we'll get there. I have problems.
Hey, he said when I get paid. He didn't say when he would get paid.
Yo, he's living paycheck to paycheck, man. That's relatable as fuck.
But he can drop 120 to fix a punching bag? Nah.
Um, yeah, I mean, there are other changes too. There are other big changes too. We've got a reworked Black Mask, um, who appears to be the leader of the party animals. I don't think they are literally directly saying that, but it's insinuated, I would say, pretty heavily by the book.
Wait, who?
Um, go ahead.
Who did you say was the leader?
Black
Black
Mask.
Mask.
Oh, okay.
And he is referred to as Roman
Mhm.
Yeah.
by one of the people. So yeah, I guess it is Black Mask. I really like the vibe of the party animals. Marco brought up the mutants from The Dark Knight Returns, and I can see the similarities. We need to see more of these characters to know sort of what they're about. But if you want to make something feel scary, I think they nailed it with this issue. You know, these party animals are no joke.
And they're quite literally the antithesis of what Snyder is also known for, which is the owls. Like, these guys are out in the open, loud, killing willy nilly, can be anyone. So I like how it's not Snyder rehashing anything.
No secrecy. Yeah, that's a
None.
good point.
Yeah.
And to that, I think a lot of this book doesn't take place all the way at night. There's a lot of sunset scene. There's a lot of afternoon scene, which I thought was different. So from Dragota's part, I thought it was really interesting to place this Batman in different settings, from that perspective, specifically where he lurks. Right, he lurks in the twilight, not necessarily in the dark.
Well, dude, you want to talk about that? The coloring on this book from Frank Martin is stellar.
Dragota was a known quantity to me. Like I knew I would like Dragota's art. From name alone, then seeing the black and white previews and like seeing this, it's phenomenal. But seeing it fully in color with Frank Martin's colors, like that one page where it's three intercut, panels of Batman in the sunset, and it's just these bright reds and pinks and oranges, which is not a Batman color palette at all, and it's intercut with those Dark Knight, very much so, news exactly, Sean, yeah, and it
Yeah,
shows Batman in full black, so he just shows much more throughout that page. It's great, and like just tonally and just the palette wise, it's distinct from a Batman book.
yeah. And right after those big sequences, especially once he appears to the crowd, you have yeah. Oh, that wasn't even the page that blew me away. It was the page right before that, Sean. If you don't mind pulling that one up real
The
quick.
literal one, this
The
one.
little right next to it. Yeah, that whole like rectangle there of transitioning from oranges to this like contrast with the blue and purple, and then you get the big orange splash page, and then as you continue down to the next page, you get these deep reds with the punches and the explosions. The palette continues to shift through the pages. Incredible.
Yeah, using the reds to transform into purple, which leads into the black, is real
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah.
I could truly, I think we could do 2 hours on this comic book. This is like, this is why I always say,
Maybe we
sorry, Kale,
should. Maybe we
right?
should.
Like
Hey, you know
I
what?
feel like there's enough there. And that's why I was talking to you guys about the idea that we could do like an after show this Saturday to talk more about this book. There is so much here. When Snyder talks about Dark Knight Returns #1, the way he speaks about it, you can tell that he sat and dissected and analyzed every page and panel of that book. And he was rewarded for that as a creator. He learned how to bake all that stuff in to the work. And you can see it and feel it here. Like everything from the writing, the art, the colors, it's all working together to produce something. Like, forget about whether or not it feels distinct, right? Like, just take that part out of it, the craft part. How good is this from a
Yeah.
craft standpoint?
Yeah.
Can I call it one of the things that was really interesting to me?
Yeah.
The Rogues Gallery.
Oh, I love that.
So two things with the Rogues Gallery that really kind of jumped out to me in this. A, they're his friends. Like we get introduced to Croc pretty early on, who's it's essentially Matt, like almost like Matt Murdock's dad from Daredevil. He's just this guy who owns a boxing gym, and also maybe has a real infatuation with reptiles and pets, which I thought was adorable. I'm like, oh, Waylon Jones, a great guy. But then that reveal that all of the people that he kind of grew up with in his neighborhood were Edward, so Riddler. Then you have Selina, you have Penguin, all these characters, and they were there during the titular moment where the shooting happens, right?
Yep.
Because they were with him, and they were with him when he was shoved. So Thomas Wayne, presumably his name is Thomas, shoves them all into a bat sanctuary and closes the door. So they were with him during his inciting incident, and knowing that they are now the DNA of what Batman is built into these characters too, in a way, is really interesting to see how that's going to go further throughout the series. And we know Snyder just said today he has at least 2 years on this. If it sells well, maybe more.
Oh,
So
that's
um,
that's a positive.
I'm really excited to see like what the trauma that caused Batman to become Batman. And maybe he became Batman because he's inside and all this stuff is happening to him and he sees these little bat things here and there, that kind of ingrained themselves in him. But like, what if somebody else saw something different? What could that do to a child?
Well, and Bruce was already obsessed with bats. We learn at some point in the issue he rebuilt a structure, a bridge of some kind in the shape of a
Yep.
bat that had like telescopic arms or something.
Origami.
Presumably that's where his wings are.
And that's what
Is sort of the origin of the design.
isn't that design what won him the prize to get the zoo trip too with
Something like that.
yeah.
with the
Yeah.
kids. Yeah.
But to that point, that's all of those characters. That's why one is
Yeah.
Croc. That's why Selina's the cat. That's why Penguin's the penguin. That I don't know what Riddler's is going to be necessarily, but
Yeah,
that's
good
why they
question.
all have that. That's all a collective trauma, and they're manifesting that in an animal or something to some degree, right? And so for the way I started to think about that, and I really appreciated this part of the book because it was just a picture, right? It is how does that affect who they are as characters, and how does that then bounce back at Bruce? Because Bruce now knows that uh, Croc is dabbling in exotic animals that Penguin imports. There's some illegalities there, right? But there's a lot of room for that. He's much more gray than he is black and white, and I like that as the wrinkle. That was probably the biggest change that I thought was of interest. Is he's on the ground, so he gets it, and he understands where people are being harmful and where people maybe are, uh, they're breaking the law, but they're not hurting somebody. And I wonder if that plays a role into something later.
Like a victimless crime.
Sure, yeah.
Hey, Amin Perez joining the VI Pals, joining the channel memberships. Thank you so much. Amin, that's a good reminder to everybody watching right now that you can support the channel by becoming a channel member and get access to perks like daily, at the current moment, daily videos. We've been dropping videos every single day, first for our channel members, and then for everybody else. We are all in this month. If you haven't heard, now you know we are all in. Every day we're dropping videos. We'll be with you guys. And our channel members get all that stuff first. So thank you, Amin. Yeah, there are like 100 people watching right now on a Thursday night. That is
Yo,
amazing. Clap it up for
wow.
yourselves.
Let's
You guys
go.
are beautiful. We're talking absolute Batman, and we're gonna continue to do that. Um, I really like the wrinkle of the kids being, his friends and them growing up, I assume, to become the villains that we know them to be. I didn't at first though. I read this comic twice.
I think that's my thing. I think that's sort of the stuff I was circling around being a bit contrived. But I didn't realize they were all together in the zoo. That could change things for me.
I don't know that it's explicit, but that was what I assumed.
I think it's a fair assumption, but I don't think it's explicit.
Okay.
Like the picture that he looks at, is it a picture that they took that day?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Interesting.
Because it doesn't, like, at face value, it doesn't look like that. But the comic book is telling you that they've been friends since they
Yeah.
were kids. So it's fair to assume that they were in the same school, because if you have childhood friends, how else did you know them? And it's by then fair to assume that they were there that day. But certainly, even if they weren't there that day, they could have been affected by it because those are kids of their contemporary age. But we'll learn more. The point I was going to make, though, is that, is it contrived? Yes, it definitely is. And I think that Scott Snyder, if he has any weaknesses as a writer, that could maybe be it, that he's willing to do something that just feels completely contrived for the sake of the story. But like that's the thing, is if it works, it doesn't matter if it's a bit contrived. And that's that for me right now. I'm willing to give him grace because I assume it's going to work. Like, sure, it's got to be different, right? We want different. Let's let him do something different.
Could you explain the contrivance? I'm not. I just want to understand what you guys mean.
It just seems really convenient that all his childhood friends are gonna happen to grow up and be all the villains we know.
Oh,
Right.
okay, gotcha.
But then if you make him witnesses to a mass murder, maybe.
And then it's so convenient that the design he made in 5th grade that you know, happened to be about a bat and, you know, inspired the design of his cape, you know, and he's so into bats.
Yeah,
I
That
get that.
stuff, you know.
I get it.
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. And it makes me go,
Yeah.
It landed, but I see your perspective.
I roll my eyes at it and I just
Okay.
move on because again, it's something that Scott Snyder will always do. It's just a
It's
part of it.
yeah, it's stuff like that that like really turns me off specifically about Snyder's writing because it's got that like chosen one vibe about it that I just that makes Batman less appealing to me.
He's got to be Hokage.
I don't know what that means.
Unfortunately, I do. I wish I didn't.
Believe it.
Um, I want to talk about the action because there is some action here, and I thought it was awesome. This action sequence that we get of Batman versus the party animals, I presume, is indicative of the kinds of differences between this version of Batman and the one we're used to. There is a 19 panel page, which is fucking nuts, but I counted it. It's 19 panels and it's it's Batman versus all these party animals and he doesn't give a damn. This version of Batman isn't a killer, but don't push him because he will get as close as he can. His bat ears are like knives and he
Yeah.
uses them. He doesn't mind.
Yeah, it's like it's like mainline Zaz in a way. He's just slicing and dicing people.
His chest plate is removable and it's an axe. He has a battle axe. What the fuck is happening here? He
Yep.
chopped that dude's hand off.
Clean.
Somebody pointed it out. It's a bat talax.
But
Love that. Love that. Like you would never see mainline Batman do something like that.
It,
Go.
I was gonna say, and that 19 panel page, Sean, that you brought up during the action, it kind of feels cinematic in a way. Like when I read something like that, that's so fast paced, I always think of like an Edgar Wright style, like just smash cuts constantly, constantly,
Fast cuts.
and you
yeah.
can hear maybe like a quick sound effect for each cut. So like there's a certain kineticism that a page like that adds, and it's like, oh, this Batman's not the skulking in the shadows one; he's in broad daylight, chopping people's hands off.
Hell yeah.
The kineticism in these panels too is next level. Like Dragoda is dragging your eyes exactly where he wants them to be.
If you like Dragoda's art in this, check out Ghost Cage. It's a book he did for Image Comics. He wrote and drew it black and white about a year or two ago. Phenomenal.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, very Akira adjacent too.
Kale, could you pull that up a little closer? Because there's that one panel on that second row right there, where the blades come out, and it's the right.
Hell yeah.
That I
yeah.
heard that. I heard that. I was like, yo. And then to your point on dragging the eye, right? When he first throws the initial batarangs, and it's the tuck tuck tuck, like it bounces, right? Your eyes following
Yeah.
that. Then it goes next, and da da da. You get those things that pop out. It's so good.
But then these red panels also
Oh.
like crazy.
Kale buys one comic book physically in his life, and all of a sudden, he's
In my life. In my life. Yeah. In my life.
in your
Ever.
life here on this podcast.
Okay.
Thank you to MJ Looney for the 5 spot who says critics of the bat emblem been real quiet since bats turned it into an axe and cut that thug's hand off. Let's go, MJ Looney.
Hell yeah.
Come on now.
I remember when it was, I think, San Diego Comic Con, before we knew it would be an axe, Jim Lee did a sketch at the con, and it had Batman with an axe. I'm like, that looks so dumb. What is he doing? This is nothing like Absolute Batman.
I mean, it does still look
He knew more.
kind of dumb.
Yeah.
I love it.
Is he's like symbol so big it's a broad axe.
I also like how when it's off, it's like a gold emblem, in a way. It's like the gold
Kevlar or whatever.
Yeah, the
underneath
gold
it,
that
yeah.
would be typically in the oval of the bat. It's just
Oh,
behind
maybe,
it.
yeah.
Because it's still technically the bat signal too.
Just see that.
Yeah. Yep.
But like the way that Batman uses the wings essentially as like Scorpion get over here
Oh,
fucking chains nuts. That is
Yeah.
just crazy looking. That's so I don't know if it's innovative or not because I haven't seen every interpretation of Batman. It's new to me and it's fresh, man.
I think for Batman, I think it's pretty new, but using the cape like that in general, I think is fairly old. I think I've talked about it before. There's an old superhero show called The Cape, where that was literally the whole thing with the cape.
I mean, it's Spawn, which is funny because Capullo's not on this.
And then the storytelling of this sequence right here, like it's just so smartly done. This is so professional. He yanks this dude with the chain, right? Sends him flying. There's still another guy there. We see this guy go flying. The next panel shows us the guy in red getting chucked. Time is passing, right? He's got this guy by the neck, and now we see this dude flying into the window there. Like it's just getting across that passage of time. You're filling in the blanks with your mind. You can play that fight out.
yeah.
Like, oh my god, dude.
But Sean, on the same page, it's still so Batman because look at all the onomatopoeia there. It's Batman 66 really. Donk bong but it's just drawn in a way where it's like sitting behind some of the actual set pieces. It's oh man, it's so good.
Yeah, this is phenomenal. And then the moment where he just hulks out and he's like, "Get out of my way!" And he just scares the rest of the party animals away. Like I in there I was seeing like Goku when he powers up. I was seeing like the Hulk. I was seeing so many different things. Like that's such an anime type of moment, but it feels appropriate here. Like they're opening up the scope of what is acceptable to do with Batman in the first issue.
Yep.
Mm.
Setting that ground right now, quick, because
Yeah.
then to that point, right? Where's the escalation point? Like, how far does that go, right? And I think the fact that we have that potential is really interesting.
Love it, man.
Honestly, after seeing images of Absolute Superman, I feel like this Batman is gonna kick his ass. Like,
Yo, The- I I like that he's also it shows his techiness and intelligence in different ways. I feel like that's been lost in some of modern Batman, like his engineering skills, his ability to plan methodically, like to that same scene where he scares the party animals away. The uh, Alfred comments like, "Oh, if you were really tactical, you would have," and then boom, explosions, because he thinks through that stuff. He had this ready, and he knew that means he knew where they were going. He's been tracking them for days. That means he set everything up days ago because he's part of the engineering team, right? Or even months ago, maybe he's maybe been leading them to this point so that he can show up and do what he has to do. Incredible.
Was that Batman that did that?
That
Did
was him.
the explosion, or
Yeah,
was
yeah.
that Alfred?
No, that was Batman.
But
Yeah.
look at the oh maybe okay.
yeah,
I'm looking at the gloves. Looking at the gloves between that panel and the panels above.
They
the,
might look a little different, but but if, based off the text, the insinuation is that Alfred
But
is
then also
surprised.
the background.
Mm,
Because it says, but if you were a true tactician, you'd have set up a trap for those fleeing the cut. Next panel, boom, Batman watching the explosion,
right.
and then Alfred going, hey, almost as if, all right, well, you did think of everything.
He's confirming it.
But I guess my association here is Alfred did it because he's the true tactician. Like
I don't-
I think you're right, but I also like it that sequence isn't super clear to me.
that might be like a slight inconsistency. Initially I thought, oh, like there was just a random explosion, but the text sort of filled in the
Yeah.
gap. I made the assumption off the text.
Maybe that's what it is.
I read it
yeah.
as kind of both of you, where it is Alfred's hand, but he's not clicking the button yet. We're just seeing him almost click it, and right as he's about to, the explosion happens.
Oh,
so
interesting.
maybe there are different explosions or whatever.
But Alfred was told not to engage here.
Only until because it was disrupting the party animals. He wasn't supposed to engage with the party animals It was only unless something disrupted that. And Bruce was that disruption, which is why they gave him green light to go in and get closer and use force.
Yeah, Mike's Total Dragon channel says he read it as Alfred as well. Tilo says Alfred was watching.
I think
Coravan
I
says
think
Alfred didn't do it. It was Bruce.
I think
It
Tyler's
was
right.
Bruce. Fuck's sake, I think.
FFS. And sorry, we didn't shout out MP with the 20 spot. My only major issue is Bruce isn't an orphan. Seeing both his parents simultaneously murdered as a boy is what makes Batman. Batman, in my opinion. I think Leslie Tompkins as his guardian would have been better than Martha being alive. I don't know. I disagree. I think the point is that he is a victim of an act of violence. That is enough to create who Batman is. If anything, this Martha being alive gives him a different softness, and I think for story purposes, a weakness.
I also think it'll give him a place to channel the real anger he has at the world and Gotham, that he probably hasn't been able to when it comes to Martha. And I think that's where Alfred is going to come in, because Alfred, I think traditionally it's probably safe to say Alfred in the main universe has had to play sort of the role of both, the mother and father in raising Bruce. But here we're only going to see like the paternal sort of masculine energy coming out of Alfred, which appears to be like that sort of militaristic violence.
Actually, that's a good point. Alfred is technically the father figure, right? Like if you look at it from that perspective, um, Bruce lost his parents, but he still had somebody. He still had a guardian. He still had somebody who was caring and taking care of him and would lead him down the right path. And I think this is that same thing, but it just happens to be his mother.
And she's a social worker, so that in itself is going to have, like, when she eventually finds out that he's Batman, if that ever happens, or if she doesn't know already, that's going to be a conflict of how they go about fixing Gotham.
Hmm.
There's an innate conflict already in there.
We're not necessarily done with this conversation yet, but I do want to
No.
let you guys know that I have something to show you after we give our final thoughts on this book. I have something to show you all.
That's
That is,
including us three, because we don't. This wasn't talked about.
yep, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I mean there are a lot of question marks, but that's good because this is issue 1. And I think that the book is compelling us to ask ourselves questions about, you know, all of these aspects of the character, of his supporting cast. Like we're talking about father figures, we don't even necessarily know that he doesn't have a father figure. Have we been introduced
point.
to everybody in his life yet?
And to
Yeah.
be fair, we don't see his dad actually die.
We've
No face,
barely
no
been
case.
introduced to him.
Yeah. So I think we've got a lot of reasonable questions. Everything introduced here to me is compelling and interesting. I like this new version of Batman a lot. He looks cool as shit. His weaponry is cool. He's not pulling his punches. And that is an interesting wrinkle for me to Batman. And also, by the way, Barbara's black.
Hell yeah.
Let's talk about that shit. Barbara's black. Now, is Barbara black because Jim Gordon, went to the dark side? Or is Barbara black because I'm just having fun?
You
Or
could
is
say that. You could
Barbara
say that.
black because Jimmy G adopted a young child? Like, which one is it?
He likes to see that shit bounce. That's why, bro.
He likes what?
He likes to see that shit bounce.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
Uh,
See, you could at least be classy about it,
You
Mark.
have to go there.
I gotta. I was thinking it.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
that's the
Um,
Unbelievable.
yeah, there's a lot of like there's that addition that's a question mark. The fact that Batman uses a gun in this, but it shoots mini batarangs. Like at least Batman's not really totally anti-gun. He's a little more realistic about it. Um,
Well, he's non-lethal at the end of the day.
sure, it's
That
not
so
lethal.
but whatever that would to whatever degree.
Did I miss the guns?
It's
No, no,
he
no.
takes Alfred's gun, and then when he meets him at
Oh
the
yeah, he modifies it.
Yeah,
he
yeah.
modifies it to shoot mini batarangs. Look like batarang cereal in a way.
Jesus, Joe. Joe in the chat. The size of Bruce. I doubt Thomas is his dad. I'm thinking Gorilla Grodd instead.
Oh my
I
goodness.
I do like that we have a Barbara Gordon who's
Oh,
younger,
yeah, thank you.
not necessarily the same age, but it does seem like Gordon's always been older, but I would still assume he would be of an age where if he had a daughter, it would be somewhat on par. So I like that they've kept that age discrepancy. I wonder what that means for the character and how uh, she's gonna do something in the future.
It makes her more of a contemporary to Batman, rather than Batman being her, I guess. What's the word I'm looking
Mentor.
for? Mentor.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
There's been a real movement lately, and I don't mean that in any sort of pejorative way, to make sort of the Gordons black, because they are, if I'm not mistaken, in
And the Matt
Yes.
Reeves Batman.
the Batman,
Yes.
in the Batwheels cartoon, Batgirl is also black, and then we have the ill-fated Batgirl movie. It's interesting.
And
There's no
and the
commentary
Cape
for it.
Crusader also. They're black in that as well. So yeah, that's definitely feels like a concerted effort of some kind. The new show on Amazon.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah. And Gordon's the mayor. We didn't discuss that.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Was Bullock the commissioner then, or was Barbara the commissioner?
I think Bullock was the commissioner.
I'm kind of down with that too. That's another just
Oh.
little twist where Bullock's
That makes
relationship with Bruce has never been the same as Gordon's. So he's not going to have commissioner access, but he might have beat cop access with Barbara.
But wasn't she? It seemed like Barbara was a lawyer or like
Barbara's
a politician.
Barbara's a cop. What?
I thought
She's
she had a uniform
definitely
on. Yeah.
a cop.
In Cape
Oh, okay.
Crusader, she's a
Oh.
lawyer. That's what you're thinking of.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Man, this is high marks. This is not only is this my pick of the week, but this is a really fucking great comic book. It really is.
What about the twist at the end? The epilogue.
Okay.
Not to take the
So,
wind out of your sails,
yeah.
Sean.
I'm fine. Okay, I'm fine. It's just a pull for me. You reminded me.
Yeah, so there is a twist at the end where we get a reveal of the Joker, and the twist on him is that he's a rich guy who doesn't like jokes. He's super serious and rich. So they basically took Batman and flipped him, to make this Joker. I honestly genuinely don't have any opinion except to say that I didn't need this page.
At all.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's okay if you seed it early. Like the Joker exists in this world. Establish that he is creepy as shit. Dragotta drew that one peeking eye out of the shadow. I thought it was gross. And plus he's that rich, so he's immediately gross. Yeah, I think it's fine to just establish this exists in this world. We'll get to it later.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fine. It didn't detract from anything, but I didn't need it. I was very happy with what I got, and that extra page didn't increase my happiness level, I guess.
Yeah.
I gotta give it 2 big old green flags, guys. It's an easy pull. Get it. Get this book.
I'm with you, Sean. This is a pick of the week for me for sure.
Same.
I think that if anyone's interested in just reading something, something fresh from Scott Snyder, but something fresh in comics that kind of just feels like something I haven't read in a while, and it feels more than just a Black Label book. There's something behind it. There's just energy behind it that feels different. I really enjoyed it. Honestly, I would recommend it just on the Dragotta and Frank Martin art alone.
All right, yeah, it could be my pick of the week.
Oh, a unanimous pick of the week. That's a beautiful thing.
Let's
I love it.
go.
Right out the gate. I mean, shit, we didn't talk for nearly an hour about this damn book and have it not be a unanimous pick week, right? Let's get into our first book. It is, of course, Absolute Batman, written by Scott Snyder, with art by Nick Dragotta, colors by Frank Martin, letters by Clayton Cowles. So the first issue was oversized. It did a lot of work to get us understanding, some of the core differences between this iteration of Gotham and Bruce and Batman, and the one we're used to, mainline. And I feel like getting all that out of the way in the first issue allowed Scott and Nick to just go balls out with this one. This issue is crazy. It's got a lot of movement and propulsion in terms of showcasing Bruce's war against Black Mask's party animals. We also get to see Bruce interacting with his friend group, who my mind immediately, when I see this friend group, my mind goes to the Sinister Six, me and the boys. That meme. This is Bruce
Yeah.
and the boys.
You talking?
And
Are you talking
so
the meme from the old Spider-Man cartoon?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Um, and we get introduced finally to a very important player at the end of this issue. What'd you guys make of Absolute Batman #2? Does it keep you as excited as issue one?
It is my pick of the week.
It is
Um,
mine as well.
I had a lot of fun with this. I think for me, it was across the board. It was kind of a very even keeled week in terms of my excitement after reading the books. But Absolute Batman kept me. I think you make a good point, Sean. It's like he already got the table setting out of the way in the first issue. Which reading issue 2 makes me like issue 1 even more, if that makes sense. Because like we really do get to kind of just live in this world. The thing that I enjoyed a lot about this issue was that Dracoda really gets to show off how different this Batman moves, how different the suit is. It really does not feel like a Bruce Wayne Batman in terms of the way he's fighting, the way the bat suit works. It really is kind of almost blowing my mind how, maybe because I'm just so used to who Batman is and the idea of Bruce Wayne Batman, that such a shift in design and the way that the suit has spikes on it. He's using acid. He doesn't have a grappling gun. He climbs walls almost like Spider-Man in a way, using his like bat claws that are attached to the cape. It's very much more like an actual bat. I'm really digging that part of it. And the whole idea of it, them building out the world here with, Gordon and Bruce's mom, Martha, being in this actively is real interesting. I'm hooked for this one for sure.
This actually didn't do that much for me in terms of following up from issue 1. I really enjoyed getting to see how Bruce plays with his friend, or plays his friends for information. I thought that was really interesting and really clever for a look at how Bruce gets information versus how he hunts it as Batman, which I think we see a lot more often these days versus the days of like Matches Malone. But everything else just sort of, I don't know, it just felt very Scott Snyder to me. And, you know, that's not always a flavor I'm super into. Especially the Batman AF part I thought was really contrived. Okay, Scott.
Sean, did we get the Batman AF? That was revealed at Comic-Con, right?
Yep.
Okay, I had deja vu reading, and I'm like, where did I find it? I feel like I've read
Okay,
that before.
I don't think I'd seen that.
Yeah, we basically heard the whole issue at Comic Con, and they nearly showed the whole thing.
Yeah, I was having a lot of deja vu reading the first third of this book. I was like, I've read this before, and I
Yeah.
had to chalk it up to that. Okay, I'm glad it wasn't just me.
Go ahead, Cale.
That's it. The art I thought was, it was very good. Dragota's on another level here. I also, again, really love the way the suit moves. And I like the different variations of the cape that we get, especially toward the end. I think that's really cool too.
You liked his stealth covering his face, almost a
Yeah,
cloak
yeah.
sort of
It's
thing.
such a cool um alternative to the draping uh curtains that he wears in the main universe.
It feels like something you would actually get from the what's the Ra's al Ghul's the League of Shadows. Like that's something
Yeah,
you'd feel like
yeah.
you'd learn from that. Yeah, and even the
It feels
shoulders are
very
gone at that point too.
yeah, it feels very gorilla in the type of fighting, the type of fighter, the gorilla fighter.
I said it as well. This is my pick of the week. I'm loving this Batman, man. It's it's shocking like how fresh this you can still make things feel with a character that is nearly 100 years old. Like it just blows me away. Like yes, I have read, The Dark Knight Returns and stuff and Year 1, and there are definitely elements of that. There's elements of a lot of stuff we've read. There's elements of Scott Snyder's stuff. But it just feels like the best parts of all that. And it's really exciting to me. Seeing Batman, ruthlessly and relentlessly hunting down criminals and making them scared of him because he doesn't appear to have any limits on what he's willing to do to exact justice. Obviously, we know he's not going to kill, but short of that, this Batman doesn't care. And that's really fun to watch, actually. The villain group isn't like revolutionary. There's nothing too terribly exciting about them. But for his first outing and us needing to focus more on learning about him and the supporting cast, I think this is perfectly fine. Just getting to watch Batman tear shit up.
I think if there's any critique I give this book is that I do wish I knew more about Black Mask. And it's only issue 2, so it's not really a critique. Because the party animals, they're the mutants. They're any big army thing that has happened in Batman before. It's no different than the Joker gang in their
Fodder.
function. Yeah. But we'll get there, and I'm pretty confident. Snyder has plans for Sionis and stuff like that. That bit where they find his Bat Cave on the top of those buildings, and even Alfred's like scared for him, but then he's like, no, he just blows it up. He's constantly one step ahead of people, and it's fun. It's fun because Alfred is surprised by him, but this character is unknown to us, so we're also surprised about what happens. So we kind of ride that trip with him.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's still room for us to be surprised by this version of Batman's tactics and what he is willing to do and how far he's willing to go. And that's been fun. I also really like the quieter moments. I really like seeing, the dynamic between Gordon and Martha. For them to have any dynamic is pretty interesting. And then, of course, throwing Barbara into the mix. It feels like a little found family, and I'm interested to see how that develops, especially because if Martha knows Gordon, then obviously Gordon knows Bruce. And what's it going to be like the fact that he's Batman, you know?
And this Batman has friends, which is sort of new for Batman. Like Bruce Wayne has the Bat family, but they're the Bat family. He doesn't have friends really that don't know too much about him.
Well, I think it's crucial. He has friends earlier in his career
True. Yeah.
here.
But that whole dynamic with him and I can't even call them the rogues because they're his friends is really interesting to me because like
Yeah.
I don't know what everyone knows there, and I don't think
Yeah.
the characters know what each other knows either. There's
Yeah.
almost
Yeah.
this cold war it feels like going on. It's like a friendly cold war. It's like they all are in positions of power. You can see that from where they are. You know, even
Mm.
Nigma is obviously a tech guy that controls something. But you know, Cobblepot has some form of degree of control in the underworld. Harvey Dent's coming up on the legal side of things, and they make sure not to tell each other everything, but enough that there's still some
Mm.
um, teamwork going on. It's weird. It's almost like they're their own Court of Owls. It's like the Court of Owls idea shifted in a way. And these people are kind of have little bits and pieces with that throughout Gotham, and then they come together as this group. It's weird. It's weird. It's um, it's unusual for a Batman book, and I think it's a good little addition.
Yeah, him having friends is really interesting and cool. I'm excited to see how that's going to play out, and I feel like that scene set up, tension. It set up some things for us to look for in the future, especially with Harvey. We know that there's going to be something that goes on with Oz because he's the only one who's like really entrenched into underworld activity right now, and that's going to parlay into something in the future. So to me, issue one was like blowing the doors off and saying, "Hey, we're here" in the loudest, biggest way possible. This feels like an extension of that, especially when it comes to the action sequences. It's a lot of an aggressive expansion of what we saw in the last issue, but it's just fun, man. It's fun. Nick Dragotta is putting his whole ass into this. It's um, it's just cool, man.
There's a one Dracota panel that I can just visualize in my head, where he clotheslines one of the party animals, and you can see like half of the chin get chipped off when he does it, like the skull mask, and it's from this yeah that angle where it's coming from like the tip of the bat claw or whatever. It's so non traditional for what you'd imagine being in like a DC proper comic, which I think this is where the art really kind of blows it out and shows that like this is a different world.
Yeah, I agree, man. Like that whole action sequence is full of really interesting choices. Like I really like this top panel here where it's like, oh man, Batman alone against all these party animals. What's he gonna do? He's gonna fucking spike them, or I don't know. Like he's gonna. I don't even know what he's doing right here. He's giving them some like.
He's breaking the tank behind him with the spikes on his shoulders.
That's so cool, man.
Oh, as a fan of aquariums, that did worry me a bit. I was like, oh, okay, well, that's going to be horrible for the ecosystem of the aquarium. But we make do.
And Dragotta just doesn't mind putting a bunch of panels on these pages, but nothing is lost for that.
No, they all have a very specific focus. That was something I really enjoyed in the poker scene is that everyone looks different, but they all even though it's a couple of pages of conversation, you're seeing things and there's nuance in each panel and they're all doing stuff.
Yeah.
The facial work, too, is real interesting for me for the Dracota work, especially during that poker scene. Um, like the Edward Nigma, he has, you know, like the Riddler question mark necklace and stuff. But he kind of looks like I think it was either Hound or Dan said it in the chat earlier. I think it was Hound. That it's kind of like a mixture between Miller and Mazzucchelli from Year One, where I can see the influence of those styles of books
Hmm,
um, in
sure.
the art on this one for sure.
Easy pick of the week for me. I really love where this series is going. Man, I couldn't be any more excited for Absolute Batman.
I'm trying to come up with a critique for it, and I can't really. um,
You don't have to. Just wave your green flags.
I don't have any, Sean. You forgot to send them to me.
No.
Oh, it's pick of the
This
week. Yeah.
it's a solid pull for me for sure, but it didn't make my pick of the week.
Okay. Like you said, we'll get to that a little bit later on. Let's kick things off with Absolute Batman number 3. This is, of course, written by Scott Snyder with art by Nick Dragotta, Frank Martin, representing on the color side of things. And, of course, on the letters, we have Clayton Cowell as ever. What is he not lettering in comics? This issue. So next issue is the Batman Year One issue. That's going to be all flashback, drawn by Gabriel Walta. This issue, though, we actually got a flashback sequence as well. It was a flashback to the relationship between Bruce and Selina. You know, as you guys, I'm sure, are aware, Bruce has been friends with a lot of the primary rogues that we know from the mainline books as a kid, since he was a kid in this universe. And so Selina, Edward Nigma, they're not rogues yet. They're just regular people right now. But he's known them since he was a kid. So we got that flashback as she kind of, teaches him a little bit about fear. And then, of course, we've got the A story where Batman and Alfred are going to war with the Black Mask party animals. And there's some other stuff floating around in the background. This was an issue with a lot of propulsion. A lot went on in this one. How'd you guys feel about it?
Out the gate, book of the week.
Wow, nice. You
Yeah,
didn't even call that on
I
Pal's
know. So I was
previews.
gonna say I was wrong, first of all. But yeah, I've been loving the momentum of this. I think there was another book that was in contention, but the thing that got me was a little bit closer to the end where the dominoes kind of fall from like a larger macro perspective, and we kind of just get these glimpses of what they mean and um, the caving of Bruce. And so I thought the flashback sequences with Selena were really good to like solidify and see how his character is being built, like who the man he is now and the kid that he was. You can see a clearer point A to point B or point C. Like there are going to be moments in his life, and they're carried by these people who are important to him, and I love that. The conversation with Nigma or Edward rather, like that AI bit, but he's having a conversation with his friend. Like, I just love everything that Scott's doing here, and I've been on a Dragotta kick recently. East of West has been phenomenal. Catching up for the book club, and so just seeing the dynamicism in that continued in here and accelerated. Yeah, firing on all cylinders for me, on all bat cylinders for me.
Yeah, this was as I read all my books this week, I had not decided on what my pick of the week was. Um until we just started talking about this. It clicked. It's this book. It is Absolute Batman number 3, which is not what I picked on Pal's previews.
Wrong.
Which means hey, you gotta play it honestly, right? I can't game the system. But I think what really jumped out to me here is that this Bruce really is different. And not just in character, in environment. The fact that he has this whole team of friends, he's got family, he's got things that matter to him, that he's a little scared. He has stuff to lose, whereas, mainline Bruce Wayne lost everything already. He was a man with a mission, and that's it. Really, all he had was his mission and Alfred. You could justify, but in this, he has people he cares about, and it causes him to have a weak spot, and we see that here. The fact that the crux of this issue deals with Roman Sionis, Black Mask, kind of giving him this ultimatum, like, hey, I can make you rich, essentially making him Bruce Wayne as we know him, if you kind of pull off on me, you break your vow on crime to let me do my thing. You can still be Batman. Feel free. Just don't be Batman to me. And seeing Bruce gamble with that and the different changes that show. Like his mom now more in the spotlight politically, so she's going to be in the target of Black Mask. Um, it's refreshing. It's different. It's still Batman, but it doesn't feel like Bruce Wayne.
Mm.
But at the same time, it does. It's really weird. I don't know how Scott Snyder was able to do this, to be honest. The fact that this Bruce Wayne is so recognizable but so unrecognizable at the same time. I think it's actually masterfully done and surprises me a lot with each issue that I read of this. Going into Absolute Batman, I was not totally hyped on it. A little bit of same old with Scott Snyder. He completely subverted my expectations. This is really good.
Nice.
To this point, I would say this is exactly why I was excited for Scott Snyder's take on Absolute Batman. Because to me, when we can get a writer who has already done great things on a particular character to come back to that character down the line, and to this point, it's been, I mean, Scott Snyder's run officially ended on Batman about a decade ago now. Um, he's lived a lot of life since then as a man, Scott has. And the world has changed. And so, what does Scott Snyder, as a man now approaching his 50s, think about Batman in a way that's different than a man who was approaching his, he was in his early 30s maybe when he initially got the project? Um, I think that's fascinating. I think that's really interesting. And I think Scott has made good on that to this point because I think you guys are right. It does feel like Batman, but it also feels like Batman with a slight twist. And not a twist for the sake of edginess. Actually, I think it's a more well-rounded character overall. That's the twist.
Bruce Wayne is less edgy in this.
Yeah. Yep.
Um, he's brooding, but in almost like a different way. Batman's edgier in this, the way Batman works. He's definitely edgier. But Bruce Wayne's a different character entirely.
He feels like he's not calculated, but he's a lot more pensive. Like Batman, he plans, right? That is the Batman that we know, and you give him enough time, and he can do something. But this is somebody who he weighs risk, and so he compromises. Batman in mainline is uncompromising in his mission, in who he is as a vigilante. This is somebody who says, "No, hold on. There's a lot of chips here. How do I bluff my way? How do I risk something but still keep? How do I hedge my bets on that?"
And I think it's pretty smart because it makes it more relatable. Like the fact that this is the everyman Bruce Wayne rather than the rich,
Mm.
you know, uh, uh, playboy that is our Bruce Wayne. The fact that he has his family, the fact that he is a little unsteady in his, mission, or at least it seems that way. It is more relatable. It's more humanizing, I think.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think to this point, him having friends in general is really smart and different because a lot of superheroes just don't have friends anymore. But the fact that they're also characters that we already know, like Scott didn't create, you know, Harold Smith to be a friend of Bruce Wayne. Nobody gives a shit about Harold Smith. He used characters we already have a familiarity with and cast them in different roles, and we'll see how that plays out. But I think already they're more interesting than they would be if the Riddler was just like a bad guy the same way he is in Mainline.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
the Riddler is his close friend that he can talk to for advice on like tech stuff, sure. But like Riddler gives him like life advice, like, hey, you might want to slow down here, you know?
Yeah.
Um, which then makes like the potential other shoe dropping even more tense. Because it's like it's still Riddler. I know that's Riddler. What's gonna happen? Because I'm almost expecting a fallout in some way. Um, if it ever comes, and maybe they're just gonna edge me the entire time for this, and I won't. It won't never happen. But it's compelling.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. There are a lot of things that have been set up, even just in these three issues, which, by the way, include an insane amount of action. These issues are action packed, but they're also they take time to have moments of dialogue and moments that matter, emotional beats. it's a lot of balancing, and I'm surprised that they're able to pull this off every week or every month rather, excuse me.
I want to give praise to Dracoda too, because you're right. There's a lot of action. There's a lot of panels,
Yeah.
and somehow I don't feel it. The combination of those two with the page layouts, like there's a lot of panels, but the panels aren't bogged down by writing either. So you're not feeling the weight of it. It's not like, oh, we're doing a lot of panels so we can fit in as much dialogue or narration as possible. No, some of the panels just show quick snippets of what's happening, but the showing of that tells us the story.
Well, the actual like time in between shows us the progression of what's happening in the scene, but the conversations that are happening progress the plot. Like I'm looking at the page where after the big explosion, the Batmobile turns into, or rather, we get uh, the tank transform into the car, and then we have the gunner, and there's a page that just has yeah. Do the next page actually, Sean.
Sure.
Yeah, that page has a bunch of panels on it. But if you look at the story and what's going on, they're having a conversation interspliced by the tense moment, but they're also calling out the time, the seconds in between. So you know that this whole page is happening over the course of 10 seconds, 15 seconds max, and this is the conversation that's happening. So it feels frenetic, and at the same time, you're seeing continuity. There's a moment where he's like, "By quitting, forget it," in a small panel, and he presses the button right underneath. Easy translation to, okay, this is forward momentum, we're still moving, we're still doing stuff, and yes, there's conversation happening, but the conversation plays into the story, not the thing that's happening in the moment. We're not getting told what's happening, we're shown, and the plot stuff happens while we have conversation.
And you know what? I just counted. There are 13 panels on this page.
Yeah, bro.
And that is an insane amount of panels. We've all heard, those of us who have done the research, we've all heard, Alan Moore and, some of the stuff he said about the amount of panels that you should have on a page. And the conventional wisdom is less is more. And yet, in this comic, more is actually more. And like nothing is lost. Like Dragota's art is still fantastic looking, even when you're getting it in these micro panels like that. The small panels serve a purpose in a lot of instances. There's a tremendous sequence here while Black Mask is
Yeah.
decimating this MMA fighter
It's
or whatever,
it's
boxing fighter.
Bibbo from Superman lore. They said Bibbo Bukowski. It's the Superman guy.
Right.
Yeah.
Like they're having this fight, and just these three panels right here showing Bibbo tap out. It's like tap, tap, tap. That's such a you could not do that if you weren't willing to put. I mean, this page has 9, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 panels on this page. You couldn't show that moment if you weren't willing to put 16 panels on the page.
In the panels, they break conventions that, like Alan Moore, would talk about, because the book is breaking the conventions of Batman. So the craft of it is also breaking the same conventions that you're used to seeing in a Batman book. And I love it. I think those tiny panels, it's like staccato almost.
Yeah.
It adds a rhythm to it, and it almost feels like Edgar Wright's movies where there's quick jump cuts too, of
Sure.
like hyper focusing on something, which adds like a speed to the reading to it. It's really really well done.
If you go back to that sequence, Sean, with the wrestler,
Yeah.
so it's all in like this like red, pink, you get all of these like really like uh moodier, almost like violent tones. And then if you go back 2 pages, you're gonna see the Riddler moments where it's like this green and purple, and the colors here are doing hard work too to set mood and distinguish moments and scenes from each other.
Yes.
Frank Martin is a master, and he's really getting to, as Sean would say, put his whole ass into this.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think, to the kids, right? If you are newer to comics and you haven't necessarily dissected books like The Dark Knight Returns or Watchmen or whatever, I'm not trying to tell you that this is in that league, but what I will tell you is that you can learn a lot about the construction of comics from reading Absolute Batman. It's not that common in today's age where you can learn about the way to tell comic stories better, differently, experimentation even in a Batman book. But we're getting it. We're getting it in a Batman comic, and it's a Scott Snyder one at that. I don't think they're pulling any punches. I think Scott Snyder wants to, and Nick Dragotta certainly, and Frank Martin, to stake their claim over the character and say, this is what we're willing to hang our hat on. And I believe that this could end up being the better. I mean, it's only 3 issues in. This is hyperbole speaking. This could end up being the superior Scott Snyder Batman when all said and done. It's
Mm.
radical. It's different. It's compelling. They're playing it. They're not playing it safe. And I think Scott Snyder is just better now than he was, and for me that's a compliment. He's better now than he was 15 years ago.
That's the only thing that I would say that's a compliment too. Yeah, because that's what you'd want to be as a writer, right? Like Snyder's been in the indie verse for so long since his run at DC Comics. He had a whole Scott-tober,
Yeah.
and I think he's learned from that. And there is a bit of an indie twang to this as well.
Yeah,
To that last point you made, Sean, if you don't mind, could you go to the page where it's his mom? It's like just 5 panels,
yes,
um, and they get blacked out for a second.
yeah, got it.
Yeah, so we were talking about like motion and action previously. This is for me a hugely well constructed page for emotion, where you have this conversation about Bruce trying to tell his mom to one get across that things might be too big, and he's talking about himself and how does he defend things, but also tell his mom to get out the way. And they have that exchange where she says, in that blacked out panel, after this kind of like tenser moment, I'm gonna kiss you now so I don't slap you. Right? We've cut to black in that moment in order to produce some kind of fear, worry. There's tension there. Then it's the kiss, goodbye, Bruce, clean up when you're done, and it cuts back to Bruce. He's leaned over, hunched over, and he's in black, right? Like dread, emotion, you can feel so much in that. So I think as much as we're doing a lot of panels for action and it is experimental, there's also space for emotion in these things. Again, another, I feel like, lesson to learn off this.
And I think those panels in particular, like when I saw the silhouette, that's like, oh, they want me to focus on the body language. That's all I can see here.
Yeah.
And you can see the mom is taller than Bruce in that situation, even though she's not. This Bruce is fucking jacked. He's yoked up, but he's still a little
great.
boy.
Yeah.
He's still her younger son. And then when he's slumped like that, he is not big. He's defeated. And then I think that the silhouette just makes you really just focus on like you have nothing else to look at. Just look at the body language. It's great.
And to that breakdown you guys just did, you know, having him sitting down is what allows that sequence to play that way.
Mm. Mm.
So very smart.
That's true. Batman doesn't sit down a lot unless he's on like Metron's chair or the Bat computer. He's not a big sit down person.
Yeah.
Damn, dude. We talk about this shit, it just gets more exciting.
And to be honest with you, I came in here feeling like I'm not sure what my pick of the week is because there's another book that there were actually, I'm going to be honest, I loved pretty much everything in our pile.
I flip flopped a lot this week. At one point, I think before he came on the show, it was going to be Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. We'll get to it. But like,
Yo,
that's a wild thing for me to think.
Sean.
Yeah, dude.
Yo, that's crazy.
Marco, we get to talk about the book, so
yeah, we'll talk about
don't
that.
blow your
We'll
load
talk
so
about that.
early. Jeez.
Yeah.
But I think what I'm ready to say is that this is my pick of the week because I feel like we don't always come on this show, even if we love a book, and have this much to say about the craft.
Hmm.
And the book is great. Like the beats and the moments are all great, but they're enhanced because we can look at this book and say, wait, this is actually well constructed. There's a lot of depth of thought going into what we're seeing here that's making it all work on another grander level. And to me, that's the magic of comics. So I would say hats off to everybody involved with this book. This is a home run, 3 issues deep, and this is in contention to me for book of the year.
Damn, dude. Yeah.
I can't disagree with any of that. Yeah.
It's excellent.
So write that
It's
down in your
excellent.
stats, Marco. Unanimous pick of the week.
I did already, dude. I
Is there
had
going to
you
be a
guys.
stat for how many unanimous ones there are?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Wait till you see the pivot that I got, dude. Oh,
You fucking dork.
Week, as we showed off, we've got a great list of books on tap. So let's waste no time getting into it. Let's talk about Absolute Batman number 4. This is written by Scott Snyder with a guest artist this week in Gabriel Walta, who joined the proceedings, giving regular series artist Nick Dragata just a week, or just a week, just a skip month, a break month here. And I'm gonna have some things to say about that fact.
hmm.
Yes, indeed. Joining them is, of course, Frank Martin on the colors, letters by Clayton Cowell. We were told this would be essentially Batman Year One wrapped up in one issue. We would get essentially the broad strokes of the origin of Bruce Wayne slash Batman. And that is exactly what we got. That is exactly what we got. Um, in an issue that explores, the ins and outs of how Bruce came up with, the Batman concept, um, the different design iterations of the suit, a very interesting deviation that he takes on the way to the suit that we know and love. A conversation with his father is interspersed, and it's kind of built around Bruce as a child in the aftermath of his father's murder at the courthouse, speaking in front of the jury and the court, uh, ahead of Mr. Joe Chill's sentencing and everything else. What did you guys make of this issue of Absolute Batman? Did it knock your socks off?
My socks were not on. I have Crocs on instead, but that's irrelevant to the quality of this book. I like this issue. Again, one of the things I praise about Snyder's work on this book specifically is the way he's writing Bruce Wayne is very different, but very familiar. And the whole Bruce Wayne origin and the year one, we've seen it so many freaking times in comics and film and TV. That it's necessary to tell the story of Absolute Batman, but Snyder just does it in a one shot as well. I think he makes some interesting choices. I think the whole the vampire of it all with Batman deciding the first iteration of the Batman has like our main Batman has the pointy ears, but this one also has paralytic arcade prize plastic teeth.
Yeah.
And he like bites people with it. He tried to really go on the vampire side of things, which I thought was goofy, but it's quickly dropped. Like he did it. He did a trial run, didn't work out. The two things about Bruce here that really stuck with me. It continues that Batman AF, that is kind of the theme of Absolute Batman. Advance forward. Batman and Bruce in this process, it's all about iteration, and it's about changing and adjusting on iteration, finding what works and finding what doesn't. And in the same vein, this Bruce, the young Bruce that we get in this, is different than our typical young Bruce. Like what I'm used to seeing from the origins of a Bruce Wayne is like a kid who's scared, who falls down into a shaft and sees all these bats and it scares him, or a kid in the alleyway holding pearls while he's scared. This Bruce is not. He's AF. He's always advancing forward, even as a child. And it's interesting. And I think it really paints a picture as to who this Bruce is that I found to be another really good job by Snyder to just slightly tweak something, but it still remains really familiar.
That's a good call out. As you said, put that together, and I think it's a really good point because he's a victim in both of these worlds, but in one of those he chooses to steep in his sadness and in the aftermath, and obviously you're going to regardless. He came out in this issue publicly to be able to say something defiantly. He was, this is a courthouse. This is, I wonder how many other kids are here, how many other parents or other family members are here alongside, seeing Bruce take lead, take charge, and that connects to the middle portions where he is building this bridge. He's going through all these iterations, but he's the one driving the force. He's kind of leaning, not even leaning on his dad. He's asking for his dad to provide him with some feedback. Hey, Dad, aren't you proud? Aren't you happy about this? And um, he is, even in those cases, taking uh, that step forward. But he has a support system, and here he's doing it alone. So yeah, that's a really good call out. Um, I I think that first iteration of the costume, I was wondering if these are some of the ideas that Snyder had for what he could do differently. Because when I saw that, I outright was like, "Yo, what the fuck is going on?" It looked like the first night, the Batman First Night, like the OG costume. There's a nod to it there, especially with the jumping and some of the flying. Um, and there's a lot of ferocity. That's one thing that he was doing on the Batman side, but then also on the project, for example, right? It's not anger, but it is this just like in your face loudness. I can't find the right word for it, um, but he has that character, and he realizes that he needs to bring it away from the symbolism and into what matters for people. He needs to connect with people, and that's one of the big differences of this Bruce, is that he's about people. He's not about Gotham and the city as its own being, not about stopping crime. It's like, what do the people need for me to be able to address the city?
I want to say thank you to Matt Fisher for the 20 spot, kicking it off, kicking the super chats off early, Matt. Thank you. He says, Sean, hey, Tyler, did you ever find your socks?
Not gonna get a foot reveal from me, Matt. Sorry.
Nice try. Marco Muckhole, lol, lol, lol. You guys are crazy. Sean Wire, funny stuff over. Absolute really is the best book of the week, at least from DC. The delays are really annoying.
Hmm.
Well, Matt, thank you for the 20. I don't know if I agree necessarily with Absolute being the best book of the week. We are discussing that. I also want to say hello to James Jones. What's up, James? Lucas Hallner, good to see you. Chop Harder Alchemist says chop them likes. I agree. Well, don't chop them, get them up, double them. Tilo, yo, what's up? What's up? Near, good to see you. Jasper Eddie, a new member of the Pals verse. His origin is impending. Thanks, Jasper. Appreciate you. CW Gordon, Comic Book History. Rami Darwish, my man, what's good? Those are just the names I can see right now. Thank you for being here. My thoughts on this issue are that it was not what I expected, in the sense that it didn't do anything that felt very different than mainline as far as the origin goes.
Hmm.
It's pretty much exactly what we know, what we understand. In some ways, I think this issue works a little better if we don't know that his mom lives, because that is the only real big difference in his origin as far as like how it affects his life going forward. And so, because that is something that we already know, it makes everything that is in this issue old hat. Um, I also didn't love a lot of the dialogue. I thought the conversation that Bruce has with his dad is a little hokey. There are references to like, things that feel more directed at us. Like, oh, in this world it's different and you can't be that way. That might work in another world, but in this world we have to go bigger. Like that just doesn't feel like genuine dialogue. So that was a little bit off for me. And then I guess I'm jumping around, but just scattershot. I gotta say the Gabriel Hernandez Walter art is definitely good. He does what he does, but this issue doesn't have the like whoa, or at least for me, it doesn't have the whoa. I gotta like analyze these panels and look at the shapes and designs and
Mm,
all the storytelling that I feel like we were getting out of Nick Dragata's work. I don't feel that same way with this.
With the difference between Jagoda and Walta, I think is pretty stark when you think about like the speed in the action. Um, there's this one panel. It's a big panel, one of the pages of this issue, where Walta is drawing the bat thumbs and how Bruce is trying to iterate on getting those working. The pretty much the stilts that are attached to his cape, and it looks like a still image. It's a comic. It is a still image, but the whole idea is to trick you that some things aren't. Whereas when Dragoda did that, that had movement, even though it was a still page. I don't think Walta's art is stiff. I think there's a calmness to it, but I think that calmness
mm,
loses some of the action and kineticism that Dragoda's art has had in the past three issues. Like I don't think it's not bad. It's good. I just think it's maybe too different.
Well, think about what Walter's most known for, which is vision. And, he's doing the same thing, but over there, he's drawing robots. It
mm.
works a lot more when he's drawing robots. He brings that haunted quality to them, that almost ethereal nature, and it worked really well. Here, a book that I think has been driven more by passion and emotion, Walter's art just doesn't hit that same high note that we've been getting. But again, it is still good.
Yeah, agreed across all of your points. The big issue was for me the kineticism. There's just not a lot of energy here. So even from that standpoint, the book felt uh, drag is too strong of a word, but it slowed it down for me. I was reading this so much slower, where I feel like the volume of panels by comparison, right? I'm speeding through the book here. I was working my way through it, and that feels a little bit different.
I, I will
Um,
I will say one thing that surprised me with this. There are a couple beats that Walta hits that are actually funny. Um, in the choice of paneling, there's two specifically. There's the Batman's first costume getting undressed, and then you see the drop of the fake teeth. I thought that was a kind of
yeah.
a funny panel. And then what is it, the three kill streak Call of Duty thing, the little remote controlled car that Batmobile that knocks over this tractor trailer.
Oh,
It's like a series of like close ups of this car. You're like, oh, this is the first Batmobile. It's a big. Oh wait, no, it's tiny. This is an RC controlled car. I thought that was paced well, and I thought there was some humor to this that I wasn't expecting.
yeah, yeah. That moment was great. It made me smile, and I think that's something that's great that he was able to do. Um, but I feel like even then, that moment, the explosion of the car, or rather like the popping up of that car, is only driven because of some of the inks that he's done. I think the example you gave about the thumb and it moving, there are moments where he has kineticism and others that he drops it, like smaller moments. So there's a bit of inconsistency around, but as we've said, I think agreed that he's a strong artist overall. I don't know that the the tone for this issue and him being paired here was 100% grand slam, but I'm glad I got to see it.
Yeah, I'm with you. The the stuff with Bruce as a, more of a vampire bat was funny. Like that was a funny angle. And I think it kind of like it almost kind of addresses, the Elseworlds stuff that we sometimes get. And then him with a gun addresses like the real OG origin of Batman from the earliest of days. He doesn't use it, like he doesn't shoot anybody, which I'm grateful for. We don't need to go down that road. Um, I wouldn't have wanted this to be a long drawn out like arc. I'm glad we got it all in one, especially because again,
Yeah.
it doesn't feel like there's a lot here. Like, do we really care to see Batman face off with the Maronis and the Falcones. Like, nah, actually, I don't need to see that here.
And it's like
Yeah,
what the
agreed.
movies are doing too. It's like every new movie that comes out, we get less and less of the origins because it's almost like public myth at this point. Like it's built into who the character is. It's understood. Why waste time if it's implicit?
And I, and to that, I'm glad that this is an issue 4, or it could have been an issue 5. Like, and it is the one and done. Like, we're not going back in time for this because set the precedent for what this new Batman will be. Amazing, cool. Then give me origin, because I think even as comic book readers, we're fixed to being enthralled in a story first, and then having the information be kind of supplemented. So I appreciate the decision to make this a later issue as opposed to a 2 or 3. One would have been a sin.
And I also like I didn't I know some of the dialogue was considered a little much with the dad stuff, but I thought the idea that Thomas Wayne is a teacher, not a surgeon, even though he name drops wanting to be a heart surgeon. But he's a teacher. He's a man of the people, and like this is who Bruce is. And it seems like a prevalent theme throughout the Absolute books, at least the ones we have right now.
I thought it was funny that Bruce calls him out for like a hot second, because I thought he was going there right. He's like, "Yo, I could have been a surgeon if it wasn't for you, kid." I was like, "Damn, Dad, all right, chill." And he's like, "Oh no, but you know what I mean, right? Like I prioritize my life in different ways, and I've organized my life in different ways, and that clicked for the young Bruce, and you see that obviously in how he decides to reorient and readdress, the costume and his tactics and all that kind of thing.
Matt Fisher with the 10 spot. I can't wait for the new Trinity to meet the old Trinity and realize that the new Trinity had it better than the old one did. So by old versus new, I'm assuming you mean the absolute versus the mainline. In which case, I would imagine that that will inevitably happen, and I could see that being interesting. Although I got to tell you, Matt, I don't find that I care too much right now about that angle. Um, there are parts of me that don't want to see that ever. I know it's inevitable, and I'm sure it'll be cool when it happens, but at least for now, I'm very happy to exist in this place with these characters.
I almost don't
Agreed.
ever want it. It's just
Yeah,
like it's too much. Like, all right, I can see where this is going down the line just based on being a comic book reader. Um, it would almost be more impressive if they never do it.
I agree with that. If they never decide to cross over, that would be a feat unto its own. But uh, there is an inevitability in
There is
the big two comics.
even like Ultimate Comics. It was never supposed to cross over until it was.
Till it did.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be a feat of money left on the table. I'll agree with that.
Yeah.
Um, Matt dropping $2. So is the new Joker supposed to be super serious? That appears to be the case. Yeah, in the glimpses that we have gotten of the new Joker, he's like a super serious guy. But then he kind of has a sense of humor because I think we saw in a prior issue he owns some kind of business or something called JK Industries. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
I thought that was just like, probably his initials, that they're gonna give him a name kind of thing. So but
Yeah.
yeah, he looks a little grumpy.
This gets a pull from me. Not as enthusiastic as any of the prior 3 issues, but I still think it's a strong book. It's nice to have Gabriel Walter in as a guest, even though I wasn't in love with what he did. But I am excited to keep the main plot going forward and see Nick Dragata again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed.
It's a pull
Uh
for me too.
yeah. Pull. Let's get back to the critical analysis of Dragata. I got these all right. I figured nobody's gonna. We're not. This isn't a pick a week. Not
Uh,
yet. There's a lot. There's a lot here on the table.
one comment I want to call out before we get to the next book is Scriptured says it reminds me of Ultimates 4 in a way, but not as amazing. That is a good point because it was also issue 4 for Ultimates, and it was a quote unquote fill-in artist kind of telling this backup story of stuff we haven't seen previous to when this book started. Um, More ways that I guess the Ultimate and the Absolute universes are kind of mirrors in some ways.
Scriptured also says, I agree with y'all. I like the issue, but I didn't love it as much as the previous. I love all of the three stories, timelines individually, but I didn't like the execution of interweaving them. Yeah, man, I agree with you. And that he followed up with that comment that Tyler just read off, and a similar framing, just not as impactful of a story, because again, it doesn't stray too far from the origin that we already know. And by the way, thanks for being here, Scriptured. Good to see you. After our interactions over on Patreon, Scriptured is one of our patrons, one of the people who decided to support us in the new year. So thank you so much. You've got an origin impending, and we're going to try to do something fun for you this time. Uh, Hecatron, another one of the boys, says, "Boys, you got to stop going live without notifying me." Hey, brother, hit that notification bell.
It's in the Discord
It's true. Make sure your push notifications are on whatever phone you have.
device.
I usually most of the time post that we're going live soon, or like right when we're live on the socials. Yeah,
Yeah, man.
I'll send a pigeon your way next time we're live.
That's what
Keep
it
your
is.
window open.
Oh man, Style So Serious makes a good point. This Batman is not a hero in the traditional DC lore. By lore, I think he means like traditional sense, and I definitely agree with that. This doesn't feel like a Batman who's out with a mission to be a hero, as much as it is a Batman who's got a mission to just save people. Which, I guess is similar, but the war on crime, the war to protect Gotham, feels almost like ritualistic. The I shall become a bat of it all. That doesn't seem to exist here, which is kind of cool.
It feels more vigilante than superhero. Even though Batman's like
Yeah,
the vigilante, he is also a superhero in the traditional sense.
right. And I think that's something that actually rubs people the wrong way. And it used to rub me the wrong way too, that Batman is a superhero. But he totally is. Like, what regular fucking person can fight like 99% of his villains, let alone Darkseid, right?
Let alone.
Yeah. Matt Fisher joining us on the membership side of things by becoming a sidekick. Thank you so much, Matt. Matt, you are the
Hey,
man. I don't know how you do it, brother, but you hold us down. I see you over at Solomonster. I see you over at Comic Pop. Brother, share the secret. Thank you a lot. Appreciate it. We've got a big DC block of reviews coming your way right now, so let's get it started with Absolute Batman number 5. This is written by Scott Snyder with art by Nick Dragotta, colors by Frank Martin, letters by Clayton Cowles. Last issue was a flashback that showed us the basically Batman Year One with Gabriel Hernandez Walta. Nick Dragotta makes his return to tell the fifth piece of this arc, the Zoo. And last issue that dealt with this was issue 3. And in issue 3, it kind of ends on a cliffhanger of, will Batman accept this money offer from Black Mask to let them go, to let Black Mask operate in Gotham with impunity. And for some reason, there were people who thought that Batman was actually considering the offer. Obviously, he wasn't. He took the money so that he could fucking burn it, which is what he does in this issue, to show to the Black Mask that he doesn't care about money and he can't be bought. And then a great big fight ensues. And I would say things don't quite go exactly the way you would imagine. Tyler, did this issue live up to what our expectations have been for Absolute Batman?
Expectations in what way? Because I think it lives up to the expectations in terms of quality. I think it's a really good issue. Again, I think as much as I like Scott Snyder, the star of the show is Nick Dragotta. Every time one of these books comes out for me, and a good chunk of this issue is a really brutal action scene that's on top of a building, and also great driving scenes. Some artists have trouble with that. Nick Dragotta nails it. But also, I think this book is different as well, where it was a little unexpected. Was that, like, spoiler, Batman kind of loses. His first arc as Absolute Batman does not end cleanly for him. And I enjoyed that. I liked how flawed and new this Batman is, especially since like mainline continuity Batman is just, oh, he can beat anyone and finish anything as long as he has prep time, This Batman is pure conviction and drive, and that doesn't really work in the real world sometimes. So I liked how that worked, and I liked how it continues the story, and it's not just a one and done villain story. Like we're living in this world for a bit. I really enjoy this issue. I mean, I continue to enjoy this book, and I'm gladly surprised at how different of a Batman story Snyder is telling in here.
Um, I think this was a good issue, but I feel like compared to the other issues, this wasn't at the same caliber. I felt a bit more of the Snyder treating young characters. Like there's a moment where uh, young Bruce tells Gordon not to close the zoo, and I could feel like he was very much the one speaking, not Bruce. Some of the moments from a paneling perspective for Dragotta here, especially that opening scene with the first couple of uh, just like kind of disconnected panels were a bit jarring, a little different, and so um, I, it was still good. This was still good, but this wasn't to the same level. It felt like a weaker issue, and I. That's not to say I am doubtful of the series at whole, but this was definitely a lull. The action moments were a lot of fun, but there were also moments of disbelief that I was just like, "Yo, this guy should be dead." Like, yes, he's whatever, but it just took it to too much of an extreme that it removed me from it. I like it's just like okay, I got pulled away from being enthralled in the story.
Dude gets stabbed more than Caesar did.
Yo, got clocked by the axe, so I thought was definitely going to be chopping his head off. Especially because they alluded to that moment. He's like, "Oh, you didn't think that this is how it was going to go." I'm like, "Oh, is Snyder talking to us for a second? Hold on, are you about to chop my dude's head off?" No, you just hit him in the face. Okay, fine.
This was my pick of the week.
Oh wow.
Uh, yeah, I thought Absolute Batman 5 was really, really fun and really good. I continue to be impressed by Nick Dragata's paneling. It's not because he's necessarily doing like Hayden Sherman-esque wild, shapes and sizes and things like that, but it's because of how much he's able to pack into his panels and how many panels he's able to pack into a page. And it never feels extra. It always feels like it lends itself. It's always story. And I really appreciate that about the way he does his thing. And I also really like the way the Batman versus Party Animals Black Mask fight goes down. It's like, yeah, we all knew that Batman wasn't going to take the money, but boy, does he beat the shit out of these guys.
Hmm.
Like, take no prisoners, show no mercy, to the point where I wasn't uncomfortable necessarily, but I was like, wow, that doesn't feel like Batman. Where he lets his what lets the spikes come out of his suit and impale that guy. That was brutality.
One thing in the absolute universe we now know is that stabbings don't hurt that bad. So the guy was
Apparently.
probably okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that it was a bit because it's the same dude that got his arm chopped off or his hand chopped off.
New profession, buddy.
Yeah, yeah, right. Yeah, like come on, dude. Um, to your point on the paneling piece, there's the moment where he's beating up on one of the bad guys right before the handless dude jumps on him, and the lettering does like this wave, so you can almost follow the kineticism of the punches and the kicks and the pows, the cracks, the whams, which I thought was awesome. That was really really strong. On page 13 for anybody who's reading digitally.
It's a great page, by the way, and even the way it's colored too.
Yeah,
It's like these cream backgrounds that get redder and redder and redder. Like it's just bloody clothing, is what it is. The violence of the fight is dirtying up the actual negative space of the art.
Yeah, there's another one that probably a little violent, but ever since my chat with Gavin Guidry at New York Comic Con, uh, creator and artist, he calls out like these panels that break at the corner. And for anybody who is reading it digitally, again, 17, page 17, there's a moment where he's falling from the top of the building, and he breaks the panel at the very last uh in the very last panel at the bottom, kind of like he's literally exiting the scene, and then he enters the scene uh in the next page where there's not a an actual gutter. It's just him falling from the page. So it feels like there's continuity even between pages. Which I thought, I'm like, damn, dude, that's some just cool shit. It's so small. It's such a small detail, but it for me it sends waves of just like this is expertise.
And as I'm looking through the issue, there's a lot of that in this. There's a
Yeah.
lot of like final panels breaking the gutters and then leading into the next page. Interesting.
Yeah, just colossal talent on display throughout this issue. The supporting cast here does get a little bit of play. You know, there's some Gordon stuff. Bruce's mom Martha's involved. There's a bit where we do see a flashback to Gordon speaking with Bruce as a child. You know, after his father's murder, and so I do like how we're still getting snippets of all that stuff too. Snyder isn't abandoning the work he's been doing to build up the supporting cast, but he is picking and choosing who and when he focuses on them. Like the other Bruce's friends, for example, aren't in this. We don't see them at all, but we have spent a little bit of time with them. All of that stuff is building up nicely, but the main focus is really on Batman, and I guess you could also say on Alfred as well, who does
Mm.
have a part to play in this too. I think everything feels really balanced right now in this book.
And it's also like by the end of the issue, things are getting worse, and like it's building that tension for this world. Gotham for a while in the main comics has always been on the verge of being fixed. um, this Gotham's a mess, and that's compelling again for me because it feels like something does need to be fixed. It's not even close to being fixed. Batman's mission has barely even started, and that freshness is appealing to me as a reader.
Yeah.
I was trying to reconcile with that because at the end where it's just like, all right, this is all going to hell. You know, it looks like they're gonna come in and the animals are really gonna be like, if you're not happy with this, take it into your own hands and just destroy everything. Like, and you know what? Maybe that's the flavor that Snyder's going for, where I feel like I can really hate the Black Mask here. Like I'm angry about his reaction to the world. Like he's doing these things blatantly now. It's out in the open, and I'm frustrated at that. So actually, I guess thinking through that a little bit more, maybe that's the point of it.
Yeah, 100%. You know, I mean, this version of Black Mask doesn't really resemble the mainline one at all, but I think that the way he's presented is it makes a perfect foil for this first arc for Batman. It gives all these punchable, goons, but also a villain who is using his money to influence the people around him and the Gotham around him, almost in like a darker version of mainline Bruce, where his money and influence is being used to destroy Gotham rather than build it up. And this Batman has to stand in the way and stop that. I really love it. I think this series is excellent.
Well, and then that same idea is echoed with Martha and how she is a protester. That's how she met Jim
Yeah.
Gordon. In a way, this Batman's a protester.
Yeah, a low to the
Yeah.
ground, resistance fighter for a city that desperately needs him. And this is the tip of the iceberg. Like this, who the fuck else is Batman gonna have to face? There's an endless catalog of potential villains to throw into the mix. If this is where things are starting, man, I can't wait to see where they go. And
Yeah.
and briefly, we didn't even touch on the fact that Batman essentially does lose in the end. getting burned. I thought the net that caught him, that was a little weak. Like I feel
Yeah.
like he could bust out of that. But it seemed like he wanted Roman to Black Mass to expose himself to the people. I like the fact though that didn't matter. That and it goes back to what Tyler was saying about One World Under Doom and how knowing the reality of Doctor Doom isn't necessarily enough to get people to resist him. Here it's the same concept where Black Mask is now known to be the perpetrator behind all this shit, and just because he's willing to offer money, people are going to side with him. They're going to be down with his cause, and that's the descent into corruption that we see in our real world today. So I like the way that Snyder is he's got his finger on the pulse in terms of what really matters.
And Comic Boom says, I love the metaphor of Batman being uncompromising in his principles and Alfred representing someone willing to work with the corrupt system. There's conflict now between Batman and Alfred, which, again, not something we've had in a long, long time.
We still don't know what his angle is even, there's the moment where he said it's time for him to get extracted, right? So like what does that mean for even their dynamic, but what does it also mean for him potentially turning into that ally?
Yeah. All right. I'm pick of the week here. This was excellent. Best book I've read this week. Maybe my pick of the month when it all shakes out.
Yeah, Jesse says this Batman a proletariat. Hell
I
yeah.
mean, yeah. It's a pull for me. It's not my pick of the week.
Yeah, pull as well. Um yeah, pull.
And I was also curious because I was like, all right, well, yeah, who else can they introduce in this world? We're getting Marcos Martin on issue 7.
Ooh.
That's a
Nice.
Mr. Freeze story.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's a two-parter, so that'll be real fun. Cool.
Sick.
Matthew Price says, always they always joke about how many Batman books they got coming out, but damn, we have some great ones right now. Absolute Batman, Dark Patterns, Batman and Robin, Last Halloween. Great time to be a DC fan.
And
Hell yeah.
none of those are Black Label.
Yeah, right? All mainline.
Yeah, so much for
I
Bat
love that.
Label.
I love that. Let's see what you guys had to say about this. The poll results are in, and overwhelmingly, you guys love this. 54% of you polled. Pick of the week is 22% of you. 11% of you passed, and 11% say didn't buy or read. So, relatively low amount of you that weren't interested in this. Um, Atomic Count says we need some likes, and I completely agree. Let's get those likes up. Julia Raul says, I have a question. Is Batman going to chop off Black Mask's hand when he catches up with him? Well, how would we know? We
Who
don't write
knows?
the comics.
Batman
knows?
in this world still doesn't kill, so he's not an axe murderer.
Right.
You don't got to worry about
Yeah.
that.
He's not an axe murderer. Julia, I think you're doing a little bit too much worrying. He hasn't killed anybody. I highly doubt he will. It's just the funny books. Let's talk Absolute Batman. Number 6. This is the finale of the first arc, The Zoo, written by Scott Snyder, with art by Nick Dragotta, colors by Frank Martin, letters by Clayton Cowles. So Batman rejected the cash offer from Black Mask. He did not accept the money. And Black Mask said, all right, well, somebody's going to accept my money. And so he put the offer out to the entire Gotham. Anybody who's willing to kill, anybody who's willing to rob, anybody who's willing to, you know, assassinate high priority targets, they're getting paid out. And it's happening all across Gotham. And Jim Gordon and Martha Wayne are under the gun, so to speak, because they're high priority targets, while Bruce faces off with Black Mask in a one-on-one. Marco, how'd you feel like this resolved the first arc of Batman?
I really like the resolution. I think the only thing that threw me off was how did he, what kind of sensu bean did this guy take? Because my man got fucked up last issue, and then this happened literally two seconds later, and suddenly he can just kick ass again. So
Just
uh,
Motrin. He took some Motrin. That's all.
yeah,
Yeah.
that
Some
aside,
ginger
though,
ale.
I thought this, I thought this was a great issue. It was full of that Batman AF shit, right? like being able to push forward, to go in, take out the bad guys. Dragoda again crushing it on so many things here. He's always strong, but there's always an issue here and there where I think he like has a moment where he excels, and this was definitely one. Off the top of my head, the panel, the two panels where he busts through the yacht wall, awesome. The homage to Dark Knight Returns, come on, dude, so good. Yeah, this was a great uh comic this week. I'm gonna see where we sit with it overall.
You're
For like
waffling
pick
on
of the
your
week.
pick of the week. I see you waffling over there.
Yeah, I am. We'll
For a
see.
Batman title too for Marco.
That's big.
It
Wow.
would be absolute Batman for Marco, but that DC Sonic boy, that I know you, Marco. I
Stop,
know
dude,
that book
stop.
got you,
No, shut
Marco.
up, dude. No.
Shadow the Hedgehog, bro.
He
Amy.
Yeah.
said he saw Batman and Shadow have a moment. He said, "That's it."
I mean,
He said,
guys,
"Now
Yeah.
I'm a DC
well,
fan."
we'll get to that. Trust me. I love this book. I thought this is great. I thought this is a great end to the zoo arc. Anytime I see the zoo arc, I just think of We Bought a Zoo. That movie with what's his face, JB Smoove, just saying you bought a zoo. Weird movie, but great end to the arc. I thought like for me, like I like Scott Snyder. I think what Scott Snyder's doing here is really interesting and surprising, honestly. I did not know he had that dog in him still. That dude has a different breed of dog in him at this point. And I'm enjoying what he's doing here. The stuff the way that he kind of constantly just takes bits of preconceived notions of who Batman is and just turns it on its head. Like the fact in this issue that Batman immediately reveals himself to all his close friends. I was like, whoa, okay, that kind of just happened. And his friends are the Riddler, Penguin, Catwoman, Killer Croc. Like, that's a big deal. The story doesn't really bring too much attention to it, but it's still kind of a big deal.
Or any.
Yeah, yeah. And like that reestablish like it completely rewrites how the story will go forward because Batman now has an entire supporting cast that can help him. Like Penguin, Oswald Cobblepot is essentially his what's that pilot that Indiana Jones has with the pet snake? But like he's got like his whole crew of people now, and I think that's really interesting. And I think the whole trope throughout this issue was that we're constantly going between Batman and then Martha Wayne and Commissioner Gordon or Mayor Gordon. And it really played with you as a reader on whether or not Martha would be killed. Because you have that preconceived notion. You're like, oh, Batman's parents get killed. So Snyder really plays with your expectations here to the point where, like, I honestly didn't really know what would happen. And I was kind of relieved when she didn't get killed. I'm like, oh, I was feeling something during that exchange, even though I can see that he's messing with me and he's messing with the reader. And I thought that was really good. So yeah, this continues to like surprise me. As much as I love Dragoda's artwork, I think it's great here. He punts a baby. Come on. There's that one panel where he he rears his foot back to punt this kid. It's Dragoda picked the perfect arc in a kick to showcase that feels goofy, and it was hilarious. He pulls a No Country for Old Men and just demolishes Black Mask in a bowling alley. Or sorry, that's the other movie. There Will Be Blood. Got them mixed up. And yeah, it's just really good stuff, and it continues to surprise me. Yeah, dude, look at that. It's hilarious. I know we've all had that thought walking down the street sometimes.
Keep those inside. We keep those inside.
I'm trying.
I continually really enjoy the paneling in this book. Who's the artist? Their name just
Nick
Dragoda.
Dragoda.
Dragotta, yes. The panel work in this book is just tremendous, page after page. The amount of panels is incredible, but each one is so specific. And Tyler pointed out, he uses very specific and particular moments that tell you exactly what you need to know in a teeny tiny picture.
Some of
It's
the
such masterful artistry.
some of the panels are no bigger than like like a silver dollar, like a 50-cent coin.
Yeah.
Like it's insane what he can do in such a small panel.
Yeah.
One of the motifs that he has is you exit a page and you enter a page by um, the same kind of broken selection. Like, for example, you're coming into this page. This one doesn't have the same white borders that it does the gutters anywhere else. And then also in instances you're exiting said page, like where he jumps out of the fucking thing, and then obviously the first page, the big page splash, but then he comes back in, he's breaking through the panel on just like this one selection here. So it's just small attention to detail.
Marco
Yeah.
bought his books physically so he can show off the art without a glare.
Finally, and
And let alone
look at this
DC
shit.
loves glossy paper. That's the issue. Yeah.
I think
So go ahead.
oh, sorry. I think for me, I really I think Scott's Batman is just not for me, man. I think he and I just have different pictures of what Batman is because this to me is just more hyper violent Batman that I just like I feel like I and not to sound like members of our audience, but I feel like we see hyper violent Batman all the time. And you know, Batman, not only are his ears knives, but they're also, radio controlled so he can lower them and stab Black Mask in the eyes. Okay, come on. Um, I really found everything around Batman a lot more interesting than Batman himself. Because to me, just from and I think I said this in issue one, this character is still Batman. And it's like there doesn't feel like there's a difference. And maybe that'll change, like Tyler said with the reveal of his identity or whatever. But Martha still being alive hasn't made a tangible difference to me yet.
This whole issue, he's like sweating about that. He's having nightmares about it. Like it hasn't maybe had consequences, but it's affecting the way that he approaches potentially having to deal with Sionis here. And now that he has more allies who know who he is, yes, that'll play into the uh, you know giving him more to do, but it's also more risk.
Sure. But we haven't seen that yet.
That's fair. That's fair.
Like we've barely seen Bruce and Martha interact.
Yeah, yeah.
So tangibly, like there's not that much difference.
I'm wondering if those things are gonna come down the line. Like they're setting it up, and it has been as direct here, but the same reason why they probably they're not gonna deal with the fact that he's Batman at the moment is because that's just fodder for story down the line.
For me, not only is this my pick of the week, I think that this arc of Absolute Batman is a classic. I really believe that. I think we've just watched the completion of an arc done by masters of their craft who completed a work that people will be talking about going forward. I really, really believe that. When I look at Nick Dragotta's artwork and these panels, and when I look at what Scott Snyder is putting down with this character and this world, and I just feel like we're lucky to be getting this and to be able to see this unfold. Um, like it's not, to me, it's not like the most different version of Batman you could possibly see. But that was never quite the promise of Absolute. And I like that this is a world that is darker, and so it requires a Batman who is a little bit different than the one that we're used to getting. This Batman doesn't have scruples about using force
in a way that traditional Batman does. He doesn't give a shit. He's not as protective of his secret identity, and we're going to see how that plays out. That's going to matter, of course. Um, his mother being alive. I agree that it hasn't been exploited fully yet, but I also think it's something that's playing in Batman's mind. It's something that he's thinking about, that his mother could die the way his father died. And that's not something that mainline Batman really has to deal with. The fear and worry of losing another parent. We see that kind of done with Alfred here and there. But Alfred isn't his biological parent.
It's almost giving Batman a Daredevil aspect. Like Daredevil's always in fear of the loved ones he cares about being killed, and it often happens to him. But with Batman, it's like everything was kind of secret. Occasionally, he'll have a love interest that might, fill in that role, but this gives him like a good amount of supporting cast that are all available to be fridged, for better or for a worse term. And I think that's kind of new for Batman.
Typically, Batman's allies are people that are in the fight. And so, yeah, I imagine that we're going to see at least some of these characters develop into the villains we know them to be, but some of them might not. And it could be cool to have his mother in his life. How does that play into it when the Joker comes around? Barbara's in the fray. There are these characters here that we can see different things happen with. And for me, that's really exciting.
And I will commend Scott Snyder for a really dumb pun by making Oswald Cobblepot a pilot, a flightless bird that can fly. That's dumb,
Oh yeah.
but I
Fair.
enjoyed that bit.
And then Joker at the end getting real east of west with this like body transfigurations and whatnot. Now unleashing Bane. Interesting.
Joker looked like he's one of those liberal Democrats with the late term abortion adrenochrome filling his veins there with the just a body full of fetuses.
This is some like Elden Ring
Yeah, it's
fucking
gross.
nastiness, dude. Like the Joker is it looks like he's like rejuvenating himself, keeping himself fresh off babies, which is vile. Um there's like am I looking at this final panel wrong, or is there like a baby hand
Yeah.
under the Joker's
No, you're right.
Oh,
It
yeah.
reminded me of so we're led to believe this is the inverse of Bruce Wayne, right? So this Joker has all the money and all the resources. I think Scott's mentioned that, right?
Yeah.
So the idea that he's essentially become that, that rich dude who uses his son's blood to
Yeah.
transfuse himself.
Yeah.
It's just turning real life rich people shit into this most, Sean, Elden Ring, Miyazaki horror that is like, it doesn't ring Joker to me, but it rings true for what Scott has said this character is. And it's gross and I dig it. And I'm excited to see what that altercation will be, because I feel like it's still a while from that. And I'm cool with these little teases at the end of each, the intro page and the end of the arc. I'm cool with that.
And I don't even want, like you said, it doesn't ring Joker to you. I'm good with that. Batman has
Same.
to be Batman has to feel more or less like Batman. Superman has to feel more or less like Superman. But once you get past those, like the titular character, go wild, do whatever. I'm good with that.
And plus, you've heard already. You already had a good Joker story with that Joker series that your cousin read. So like,
That was a great Jim Gordon series.
oh, true. That's true.
Um, yeah, I mean, it's hard to know what to make of the end. It's hard to know what we can expect from Bane, but these continual teases of the Joker. Now we know Bane is on the horizon. Mr. Freeze is being teased for the next episode or issue.
Yeah.
And one thing I like too with Batman's best friends being his classic rogues gallery is those are the big guys: Penguin, Riddler, Catwoman, maybe not Killer Croc, and Two-Face. They're off the board as villains for this for now. So in the immediate, we kind of get these retellings of maybe some lesser known characters that I find exciting. Like maybe we could that's why we can get I guess Mr. Freeze is still pretty big, but we can get some lesser known.
The lesser known Bane.
Yeah, okay, yeah. I forgot how big Batman's rogues gallery is. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I guess in Scott's case, he's looking at 2 years solid on this. You want to get your shit in. Hopefully, though, there is space for. I don't know though, because if you're gonna do different things with the characters, then do we need to go to the lesser characters? Like if it's not gonna be traditional Freeze, and it's gonna be a different take on Freeze, and he's gonna do his take on all these guys. Does he ever get to Scarface?
To be fair, nobody's really gotten to Scarface.
Yeah, yeah. Pick of the week.
We'll talk about it. Pull for now.
It was close for me, but as we've talked about it, I can't not say this is my pick of the week. So yeah, I'm picking this as my pick of the week.
I can't pass on this because of the art. I can't. The art's that good. It's a pull.
Okay. So what we're doing now, what I'm doing now is I'm putting up a poll because we've officially gotten through the first arc of all the Absolute books, right? So what I want to know is which one did you enjoy the most? Is it Batman? Is it Superman? Or is it Wonder Woman? The poll is coming up. I want you guys to let us know your thoughts. And while you do that, we'll read off the poll results from the Absolute Batman 6 review. 52% of you said poll, 31% said pick of the week. That's really high. Didn't buy or read is 11%, and pass is 3%. Are there people that are not buying this? And if you're not buying it, why? Why not? Are you not like what is not hitting for you with this book? Not that it's necessarily perfect. I'm just curious.
Cole brings a good point up here. Marcus Martin is on the art for Freeze.
Very excited for that one.
That is very exciting. Yeah.
Perfect. I can see it. The blue, the red. Ugh. Simple colors.
Yeah. Oh, I love
flat.
I love a Freeze story that has the right choice of red. Yeah.
If I recall correctly, which it's been years, but if I recall correctly, Scott Snyder's Mr. Freeze New 52 reinvention was dreadful. So
Was it? Was it? I thought that was the really, really good one. Or am I thinking of the other guy?
Are we
the,
talking
White
the
Knight.
Murphy. I like
the
the
hipster
White
haircut?
Knight one a lot.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking of.
The Nazi
The-
one, Sean?
Yeah, it ties him into the Nazi stuff and all that. But I thought Scott Snyder's just turned him into like a fucking psycho.
Iceberg monster looking.
Yeah.
No,
Wasn't
I
there
thought he was the
something like that?
one. Okay, so I thought that the New 52 Mr. Freeze was like the short hair kind of young svelte fit guy that I think started in Finch's Detective Comics. That's where he first appeared. So Snyder had to play in that realm a bit. I don't even remember a Snyder arc of Mr. Freeze.
It wasn't an arc. It was a one shot of some kind. Um, and I'm casually looking it up now, and there's definitely a lot of angry people on the internet about whatever Scott Snyder did with Freeze at the time. But I just can't remember. I can't remember exactly what it was. I'm pretty sure it was like that he was a nut. He was obsessed with. Yeah, here it is.
Yes.
They show that Mr. Freeze has always been a madman who tortured animals and murdered his own mother. Victor and Nora were never married. Victor imagined it all. I hated that stuff.
Well, I wish
I
that was the case for
remember
me.
that. I found the Reddit post on it. 12 years ago.
What
Holy
what
shit.
subreddit? Our Batman?
Our comic books.
Okay. Fun subreddit actually.
Yeah. Lucas Allner says, Sup, pals. Joining late. Just wanted to say hi. Gotta hop out. Working a double. Catch the replay tomorrow. Lucas, good luck on that double, bro. See you live Saturday, hopefully, and enjoy the replay, dude. All right. This poll is surprising because Superman and Wonder Woman are tied at
Wow.
36%. Batman actually pulling up the rear with 27%. So there you go.
That's actually
That's-
surprising to me.
Yeah. Damn,
Huh.
really? Wonder Woman.
You guys want some hope in your books, huh?
What do you guys say?
I say Wonder Woman.
I think I would have said Wonder Woman, but I think Superman is creeping up on it. And I really like Batman also creeping up on it. I'm gonna go with Wonder Woman still. Yeah. It's very close though. We're on thin margins.
What? Superman. Easy.
It's not
I,
easy. You just saw me go through trouble trying to do that.
and you were wrong for doing that.
I just don't vibe with Jason Aaron. We'll talk about it here in a few minutes, but man, I just don't vibe with his stuff.
The Superman stuff has been what has felt the most distinct, like innovative in terms of flipping the origin, flipping the like pivoting the character on the axis point of who the character is. That
Yeah.
stays true, but the world around him is just transformed. I love
Yeah.
that.
I agree with that. I do agree with that.
For me, it's Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman at the moment.
Where does the Flash fit in for you?
If we were judging it by like, let's say we were judging by issue ones, I would say it was the. I would say issue one of Batman, issue one of Wonder Woman, issue one of Superman, issue one of Flash.
Yep. Yep.
That's how I would break it down.
Munster
Um,
Design said, got my Wonder Woman #1 signed by Hayden last weekend.
Oh hell yeah!
Hell yeah.
Did you tell them we said hi?
Hell yeah, that's awesome. Hayden's a cool person too. Like,
I gotta reach out to them.
very, but just before Wonder Woman released, we got to talk at Comic-Con, and their energy was very like, I can't even believe this is happening for me type thing. Like, so excited, that it was really cool to watch someone kind of just before the rocket ship takes off.
Just before the industry comes in and breaks them down.
With
Yeah.
with two books at the same time too. It was just a perfect storm for Hayden.
Banksy Main says Wonder Woman has so much heart. It really pulled something out of me that I hadn't felt from other books in a long time, and the art is definitely my favorite of the three.
I think the art Dragoda is just bonkers.
It's weird though because we talk about paneling for both of them in such
Yeah.
vastly different ways.
Yeah.
For
yeah.
Dragoda, it's a for me what jumps out to me is how specific it is and how each individual, even the smallest panel I can even imagine art can be in, is chosen specifically. Whereas Hayden's art does the same thing, but the panels are they're much more I don't even want to say cinematic because it's stuff that film can't even do. It's
Intricate?
specific. It's intricate. It's so
Yeah.
specific to the medium of comics.
I feel like it's design heavy, right? Because it's a
Sure,
lot of
yeah.
like repeating figures and things like that. Where I feel like Dragoda's, I don't want to say functional. That's not the right word, but like it plays so good into the rhythm and timing of comics.
Into the form.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas Hayden's needs to be read from a page. You can read Dragoda's book almost in like a panel view if you were in like a comicsology
Yeah.
book, and it would still work. But Hayden Sherman's you cannot. You need to be able to read view the panels and then view the page. And I think that's really, really interesting to me as a comics reader.
Dragoda's art Dragoda's in control of time and space, and you're on Dragoda's time. And it's impressive from a craft standpoint that Dragoda is able to pull off those things because of how broken up those panels are. And I think with Hayden, it's impressive to look at somebody take a comic book page and figure out ways to slice it up and create these shapes that thematically tie into what the book is doing. They're very impressive, but they're very distinct. And I like that we're talking about DC books in that way.
Yeah.
That's cool.